Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here. And in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Wednesday, October the 27th. We do got a really big slate today. We got 10 games to go over. As always, I'm going to go game by game, and we're going to talk through each game on the slate, break down each team, just kind of give you guys my brief and quick thoughts of each team and of this slate, looking at this slate the night before. And as we do go through each game, we will build out an early core, just 5 guys that do stand out at first look. Obviously, with a sport like NBA where there's constant news, where things can change, with a click, a guy can get ruled out and that can completely change the slate. We saw that Tuesday night with LeBron getting ruled out. It just kind of changed everything, changed your entire perspective on the slate and, who you were trying to roster. So when it comes to the NBA, you've got to keep up to date with news. The core that I give out in this video is obviously not set in stone. The guys I give out in this video are not guaranteed to be in my lineup. So if you guys want my full updated core plays, if you want my full updated content after, news comes out, after we get starting lineups and everything like that, I do provide a lot more updated content on Patreon, so you can check that out. Link down below in the description. You can get access to my core plays, my rankings, my positional plays where I list off my favorite plays at each position. Also, you can get in our Discord chat where I'm in there throughout the day to answer any questions you guys have. Even after lock, I'm in there answering questions. So definitely check out the Patreon content. Link down below in the description if you do want to see more updated content from me. You want to get more or see more that I have to offer. But before we get started with the breakdown, guys, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well. And if you have not yet, be sure to check out PrizePicks, link down below as well in the description. PrizePicks is the sponsor of this video. They're more of a player prop based site. PrizePicks is kind of an up and coming DFS site. I know a lot of you guys already do play on PrizePicks, but for those of you that haven't and you want to check them out, use promo code NOAH when you sign up for PrizePicks. They will match your first deposit up to $100, and you can check out everything they have to offer. You can see their board for Wednesday's game. Now, I'm recording this video on Tuesday night. At the time I'm recording this video, they don't have any projections posted yet for Wednesday, but I'm sure they'll get those posted, sometime late Tuesday night, maybe early Wednesday morning. You very simply just take the over or the under on the projections they have listed, so you can kind of look through, see what they have to offer, make some picks for yourself. You can easily win up to 10x your money on PrizePicks. You have to make at least 2 picks, but you can make up to 5 picks and win up to 10x your money. So yeah, check out PrizePicks, guys, if you have not yet, and be sure to use promo code NOAH so you will get your first deposit matched up to $100. You will get that deposit bonus. But yeah, let's take a look at the first game of the night, talk about the Hornets and the Magic. So looking at the Charlotte side here, when it comes to the injuries, Terry Rozier is doubtful for today. He is not expected to play, and then PJ Washington is ruled out. We saw both these guys be out last game, but Terry Rozier and PJ Washington. They went with Kelly Oubre in the starting lineup again in place of Terry Rozier. So when it comes to this Charlotte team, it's a good matchup here against Orlando. Orlando is not good defensively at all. I don't expect them to be good defensively this year. I think this will be somewhat of a slow-paced game, at least, from Orlando's side. Orlando does play pretty slow. Charlotte this year, though, has actually been playing at a really fast pace. So far through a few games this season, I know it's a small sample, but Charlotte is a top 5 team in pace this season. So, these guys like LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges have upside, obviously. LaMelo Ball without Terry Rozier, I think, is a good play here. I was on LaMelo last slate, and he had a pretty good game. He could have had a way, way better game. If you played LaMelo last slate, you probably know how it went. He got into foul trouble. He fouled out in overtime, only played 33 minutes, even in overtime. Probably would have played way more had he not been in foul trouble. He's been in foul trouble, like, almost every game this season. Like, I know one of these games, I think it was the Cleveland game, he got in foul trouble. I think the Boston game, he got in foul trouble, and that kind of limited his minutes. I don't know why he's playing as few as minutes as he is. Like, I think LaMelo's going to play more than 29 minutes a night. I mean, he got 33 last game in overtime, but if we can expect like 32, 34 minutes from LaMelo, I think he still has upside even if he doesn't play like 38 minutes. I mean, LaMelo's shown he can be really productive when he's on the floor. He's one of these guys that can do everything. He can score, he can rebound, he can get assists. He's got legit triple-double upside. At 8,100, if people aren't going to be on LaMelo, maybe they're worried about the minutes or whatever it may be, I'm just going to bank on the talent. I'm going to bank on the increased opportunity and increased usage he should get without Terry Rozier. And we've seen him put up big games when Rozier was out. I mean, you saw it, that one game against the Pacers, he went for almost 60 DraftKings points. So, yeah, I love LaMelo here at 8,100, and I think he will go pretty low owned on a big slate like this. He wasn't very popular last slate, even with Rozier out. I don't think he'll be that popular today. So I like the LaMelo the most from Charlotte. I think Miles Bridges is in play too. Miles Bridges has been playing really well. He's been getting massive, massive minutes. His usage rate has been pretty high too. I think at some point Miles Bridges is going to start regressing a little bit. I don't think he's going to be a guy that puts up 45, 50 DraftKings points every single night. Like, he's just not that kind of player. But he has been playing really well, and he is getting big minutes right now. And Orlando obviously is not good defensively. So, yeah, Miles Bridges is definitely in play too. And then Kelly Oubre is probably the other guy I have interest in from Charlotte. He did start last game in place of Terry Rozier, played 43 minutes in overtime. Played pretty well, scored 35 DK points. Only 5,700, so does still feel maybe a little bit too cheap if we can expect like 35, 36 minutes from Kelly Oubre. I think he's in play too. I would say that those three guys, LaMelo, Bridges, and Kelly Oubre, are the guys I have interest in from Charlotte, and that's probably it for this team. I don't see too much else that I love, with the price points that I'm looking at. With Gordon Hayward being priced where he is, with Mason Plumlee priced where he is, not much interest in those guys for me. But other side of this game with the Orlando side, the Magic are a team that, God, they're tough to roster. Like, they're a frustrating team to roster. They run a pretty deep rotation. They don't really give too many guys heavy minutes. Mo Bamba is someone that has a lot of upside. He's a really good point per minute player. The matchup against Charlotte is pretty good. Like, Charlotte's never been a great defensive team, especially against big men. Now, they do have Mason Plumlee, but Mason Plumlee's not really that good of a defender to begin with. So I think Mo Bamba as a really low-owned tournament play makes some sense. I expect him to be very low-owned on the slate. Same could be said for Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony, another guy with upside. He's going to get probably 33 to 35 minutes. Charlotte has been playing really fast this year, so, it is a good pace-up spot here for some of these Magic guys. But they're just kind of tournament dart throws. Like, I don't see too much that stands out as, like, core plays from the Magic. Franz Wagner, again, as, like, a lower-owned tournament play could be fine. He's getting, pretty big minutes. So far this year, he's played at least 27 minutes in every single game. His price is coming up. He's up to 4,800 now, but if we can expect like 30, 35 minutes from Wagner, which is what he's played in 3 of their 4 games, for 4,800, he makes some sense as a cheaper value, but I have a feeling there'll probably be better value open up as the day goes on. There is still some news we're waiting on from other teams that we'll talk about in the video, but I think that does it for this game. We can move on to the next one, talk about Washington and Boston. So looking at the Wizards here, on DraftKings, I really don't see much I like from this Wizards team. Everyone feels appropriately priced, if not, a little bit too expensive. Dinwiddie and Kuzma both got priced up for when Bill was out. Now that Bill's back, I don't really have interest in those guys, their price points. Daniel Gafford and Montrezl Harrell, their minutes have just kind of been up in the air. They've kind of been splitting the center minutes. You got 23 from Gafford last game. You only got 21 from Harrell. Like, if I knew Gafford was going to get like 28 minutes, I would have a good amount of interest in him, but I don't have any confidence that he gets nearly that many minutes. He probably plays like low 20s, and same for Montrezl Harrell. So neither one of them stand out. Bradley Beal obviously can go off any night, but on this slate, there's just too many other studs I prefer. There's a lot of guys you can pay up for. Obviously, it's a 10-game slate. We have a lot of options, so that's really it for Washington. Like, Washington is not a team I have much interest in at all. And, there's going to be teams like that we're just going to kind of fly through and not really touch on, because on a 10-game slate, you can't play everybody. You got to take some stands. I think the Wizards will be a team I probably just avoid on this slate. Now, on the Celtics side, looking at Boston here, it is a really good matchup for these Boston guys against the Wizards. The Wizards played fast last season. They were not good defensively. I expect probably the same this year. I expect them to be a relatively fast-paced team. I expect them to be pretty bad defensively as well. So far this year, like in defensive rating, let's see where Washington is. They've been a little bit better in defensive rating, but, it's a small sample. I really don't want to look too much into that. So I do like some of these Boston guys. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, I think are both tournament plays. I don't know if I'd be considering them in cash games or as like core options. They both feel priced about right. Jason Tatum has had some big games this season, and obviously is someone with a lot of upside. You expect him and Jaylen Brown to be the two guys that do most of the heavy lifting on offense, especially now that Kemba Walker's no longer on the team. So yeah, Tatum at 9,100, I do have interest in a good matchup against the Wizards. Same for Jaylen Brown at 7,800. Jaylen Brown's had 2 massive games this year, had that disappointing game against Toronto, but went off in his first game against the Knicks, went off last game against Charlotte, and obviously he kind of benefited from overtime, but even before overtime, he was already doing really well. So at 7,800, I think Jaylen Brown makes some sense too. Both Tatum and Brown, I do like a good amount. They're definitely my favorite plays from Boston. And then there's some guys you could consider as like lower owned plays, like a Robert Williams. Al Horford's expected back for this game, so I don't feel as great about the minutes for Robert Williams. I don't know if he plays as many minutes as he did last game, but Robert Williams is a really, really good point per minute player. He's a guy that can put up massive games, even in like 28, 30 minutes. It's a great matchup too. So Robert Williams as a lower owned tournament play, I do have some interest in. But that's probably it for Boston. Dennis Schroeder played really well last game, but he I think he kind of benefited from Horford being out. Horford being out moved Schroeder into the starting lineup. With Horford probable and expected to play, I'm assuming that Schroeder goes back to the bench. So at 5,700, I don't think I'm going to go there. So yeah, that does it for this game, I think. We can move on to the next one, talk about Miami and Brooklyn. So on Miami today, looking at the Heat here, they're another team that feels pretty appropriately priced. Like, nobody on Miami stands out to me, even though the matchup against Brooklyn is pretty favorable. Jimmy Butler, 8,800, obviously has a ceiling and obviously can put up a big game any night. But on this slate, am I personally going to be playing Jimmy Butler? I don't think so. I think there's other studs I'd rather get to that we'll talk about later. I think I'd rather save salary and play a guy like LaMelo Ball, who probably comes in lower owned than Jimmy, honestly. Bam Adebayo, again, has upside, but I don't think on this slate I'm going to get to Bam at 7,900. There's just, I think, other centers I would rather be playing. And then Kyle Lowry at 7,300, another guy I just don't really have that much interest in. Tyler Hero's been playing great this year, but his price is way up to 6,700. So, yeah, there's not much I like from Miami today. And on the Brooklyn side, it's kind of the same thing. Overall, this game I don't have too much interest in. KD and Harden are always guys you can go to. With Kyrie out, you expect KD and Harden to both dominate the usage, to obviously give you massive upside. But the matchup against Miami is not great. You have some other studs you can go to on this slate that I prefer. You have Giannis against the Timberwolves that we'll talk about. You have some other guys we'll mention later on in the video. You got Cat on this slate. So I don't think I'm going to get to either KD or Harden. They're probably towards the bottom of my list when you look for pay-up options today. Harden was actually kind of popular last slate, which is something I was kind of surprised by. He was like over 30% owned, and he busted. I mean, he's not been great this year. You look at the game log, he's got less than 50 Draftkings points in every single game. I think at some point Harden's going to have a good game. He's doing, he's getting the peripherals, which is something he's always done. He's always been a guy that will get rebounds, he'll get assists. He just really hasn't shot the ball that well. Last game he shot the ball pretty bad, 29% from the field, 12% from three. At some point he's going to have a good shooting game. At some point he's going to put up a triple-double. We know Harden has triple-double upside. Could it come today? It absolutely could. Harden has upside, but I personally don't think I'm going to be playing him on this slate. Same goes for KD. The only other guy I'll mention from Brooklyn is Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown did start last game. He played 30 minutes. We've seen the Nets just kind of change up their starting lineup all season. They went with Claxton, and then they changed it up, went with Bruce Brown. If Bruce Brown starts again, he probably plays close to 30 minutes. At 3,700, he wasn't very productive last game, but if he's going to start and play anywhere near 30 minutes, at 3,700, he's going to be a viable cheap option. On a big slate like this, there might be better value open up as the day goes on, but for right now, I think Bruce Brown is in play if he does wind up starting again. But that's really it for this Brooklyn team. Those are my main interests from the Nets here. So next game, we'll talk about Atlanta and New Orleans. So on the Hawks here, Trae Young at 9K against the Pelicans. Look, Trae Young, another guy that has a lot of upside. Good matchup here against the Pelicans, who I think will be a very fast-paced team this season. If we look at pace so far, New Orleans hasn't been playing at that fast of a pace. They've just been about, where's New Orleans at? I think they're about middle of the pack, if I remember correctly. Let's see, where are the New Orleans Pelicans? They're actually top 10, so they are top 10 in pace. I do expect the Pelicans to be a pretty fast-paced team. I expect them to be a team that runs, so it's definitely a good spot here for Trae Young. I don't think New Orleans is going to be that great defensively either. At 9K, I do have some interest in Trae Young. Now, how are you going to rank all the studs on this slate? That's like the toughest part about these big slates, is just ranking all the studs. Like, all these guys can do well. Trae Young, Jason Tatum, Harden, KD, like all these guys have upside, but you can't play them all. You got to take some stands. I don't think I'm going to play Trae Young on this slate. I think I prefer guys like Giannis, maybe Karl-Anthony Towns. You got Sabonis on this slate, who I'm always a fan of. Don't know if I'm going to get to Trae Young, but it wouldn't be surprising to see him have a good game here against a fast-paced Pelicans team and in what should be a relatively high-scoring game. But the rest of the Hawks, man, I don't think I'm going to really want anyone else on this team. We will need to keep an eye on the DeAndre Hunter news, because that is at least somewhat important. Last game, DeAndre Hunter was ruled out, and we did see Kevin Huerter draw the start. Kevin Huerter played 27 minutes, had 23 DK points. He would be playable at 4,500 if Hunter's out. Cam Reddish definitely benefited last game with Hunter out. He played 27 minutes. He's been playing really well off the bench, but his price has come up to 5K now. So at 5K, even if Hunter's out, I don't really like Reddish that much, especially on a big slate like this where we're probably just going to have better value plays open up. So yeah, from Atlanta, I think it's probably just Trae, and that's really it. I don't think I'm going to go to Capella or John Collins or Bogdan. I really haven't been playing any of those guys so far this year. On this slate, I doubt I get to them. Trae's really the only Hawk that I have interest in my opinion. But next, or looking at the other side here with the Pelicans, so without Zion, where we can expect the usage to go. So far this year, Brandon Ingram's had a really high usage rate. Him and NAW, I think, are going to be the two guys that really kind of dominate the usage. We've seen J-Val have some massive games too. Like J-Val's upside has been really, really high this year. We've seen what we kind of expect from J-Val. He's always been a guy that when he gets minutes, he can put up big games. I'm trying to pull up the uses this year. So yeah, so far this year, usage-wise, Brandon Ingram, as you expect, without Zion, does lead the Pelicans in usage, nearly 32% usage rate, averaging over a fantasy point per minute. J-Val, surprisingly, averaging the highest fantasy points per minute on the team, 1.29 fantasy points per minute for J-Val. He's been super, super productive with the Pelicans this year. It's not really that surprising either, because even when he's been with Memphis, when he was with the Raptors, he's always been a really productive player when he gets minutes, and he's been playing massive minutes too. He played 39 minutes last game against Minnesota, 36 the game before that. Maybe that was just them trying to match him up with Towns, and maybe they were just trying to match his minutes with Towns last game. But against Capella, against John Collins, I mean, they're going to need J-Val out there. I think J-Val plays 30-plus minutes every single night, as long as he's not in foul trouble and as long as the game stays close. So if we can get 30-plus minutes from J-Val, I mean, at 8,200, like, he still has upside to pay off this price tag. Now, is he going to project well at this price? Probably not, but he should be really low owned because he's not going to project well. I do have interest in J-Val in tournaments. Same could be said for Brandon Ingram. I think really all these Pelicans are going to be low owned because none of them are really going to project that well at their price points. But we know Brandon Ingram has upside. J-Val has upside. NAW, at his price, I'm not as high on. Devontae Graham, I think, makes sense as a mid-range kind of option in the 5K range. He's been getting good minutes lately, 35, 39 minutes their last two games. He's been productive too, especially last game. He did shoot the ball really well. He's kind of scoring dependent, Devontae Graham is, but if he can make his shots, you do get some upside from him. He can put up 35, 40 DK points if he can knock down his shots. He still feels a little bit too cheap at 5,700. So I would say my favorite plays from the Pelicans are definitely Ingram, Valanciunas, and Devontae Graham. Probably don't really see myself going to anyone else, though, on this team. So we can move on to the next game, talk about the Pacers and the Raptors. So looking at the Pacers here, important news to keep an eye on is that Caris LeVert is questionable. He could maybe make his season debut on Wednesday. If Caris LeVert does wind up playing, I think that will definitely impact guys like Domantas Sabonis, Malcolm Brogdon. I don't know if it'll impact them enough to where they're just completely out of play, but I think they would take at least a little bit of a hit to where they wouldn't be as good of options. But still, we know Sabonis and Brogdon both have a ton of upside. Brogdon's been playing great this year. He's been smashing, and of course, last game I play Brogdon, and he puts up 38 DK points. Like, he was smashing to start the season, 54, 55, 45, and then of course, last game I played Brogdon and he puts up 38 DK points, just kind of how the season's gone for me. But Brogdon still has some upside. I wouldn't like him as much, though, if LeVert plays. Sabonis, kind of the same thing. If LeVert plays, I don't have as much interest in Sabonis, but he would still be playable, I think, because Sabonis can always put up a big game, but he wouldn't project that well at his price point. There's probably some other studs I think I would lean to in the 9K range. But if LeVert remains out, I mean, we know where the usage and the production is going to go to on this Pacers team. Like Sabonis, Brogdon, both those guys are going to do all the heavy lifting. Both of them are going to play massive minutes. So I would like him a little bit more if LeVert does remain out. And then, like, Chris Duarte is probably the only other guy I'll mention. He's been getting big minutes so far this year with the Pacers. He's been, taking a lot of shots. He's a pretty scoring dependent player. He doesn't really do he doesn't do too much except score, except take shots. But if you can get a good shooting game from him, he does have the potential to put up 30, 35 DK points. He's priced correctly, though. He was a really good play when he was 3,900, 3,300. Now that he's priced where he is, I don't really like Duarte as much, but at least still playable just due to the minutes that he's getting and due to the shot volume that he's getting so far this year. But that's really it for the Pacers. I don't really like too much else on this team. So other side, talking about Toronto, looking at the Raptors, you have Fred VanVleet at 7,800. Fred VanVleet, so far this year, he wasn't great, but then he finally bounced back, finally had a big game last game against Chicago, played 43 minutes, had 50 DraftKings points. Like, this is the reason I was playing Fred VanVleet at the beginning of the year. Now, it's funny how I get off of Fred VanVleet and he finally has a massive game. I played him against Washington. I played him against Boston. He sucked both of those games. I finally get off of him, and of course he puts up a 50-burger against the Bulls. But this is why I was playing Fred VanVleet at the beginning of the year, because of this kind of upside that he has. With Siakam out, with Lowry no longer on the team, VanVleet is going to get a ton of opportunity. He's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. It's a good matchup, too. The Pacers, they played pretty fast last year. I think they will be a somewhat fast-paced team once again this season. I do want to check how they've been playing in terms of pace. So they've been about middle of the pack this year so far in pace. The Pacers have, but they were a pretty fast-paced team last season, especially towards the end of the year. I think that probably will stay true this season. So 7,800 for Van Vliet, probably not like a core play or a cash game play, but more of a tournament option, but a guy that does have upside, and I do have some interest in the 7K range. Straight up, though, I probably would play like LaMelo over Van Vliet. But the rest of these Raptors, like they've all kind of been priced up except for Precious Achiuwa. Precious Achiuwa at 4,900, I do still have a good amount of interest in. He's been starting at center lately, and he's been getting consistently good minutes. 25, 33, 29 minutes their last 3 games. He's been productive as well, averaging over a fantasy point per minute so far this year with Toronto. We saw last year when he was with Miami, he was really productive. He still feels a little bit too cheap at 4,900. If we can expect 30, 32 minutes from Achiuwa, I do like him as a good amount from the Raptors. I would say he's my favorite play from this team. When you factor in price point, he's pretty cheap on DK, and he's also pretty cheap on Yahoo too, only $14 at power forward. So I do also like him over on Yahoo if you play over there. But Van Vliet and Achiuwa are probably the only guys I have interest in from Toronto. I don't see too much else I like from this team, looking at the pricing. So yeah, we'll move on to the next game, Minnesota and Milwaukee. So on Minnesota here, Karl-Anthony Towns, 10,100. Someone I do like a lot in tournaments today. I think Towns will be pretty low owned. He's coming off a massive game. Last game against the Pelicans, played 40 minutes, had 70 Draftkings points. Towns is someone, I've always been pretty high on. I play Karl-Anthony Towns all the time in DFS, really ever since he's came into the league. I've played him a ton. He just plays massive minutes. He dominates the usage on this Timberwolves team. The Timberwolves play really fast, so we're going to see Towns put up a lot of big games this year. The Timberwolves are going to be in a lot of high-scoring games with how fast they play, and this could definitely be a high-scoring game. Now, the only issue and the only concern I guess I have is that Minnesota is not that good of a team. There's some blowout chance here, especially with Milwaukee playing at home. But if this game can stay close, I mean, it has a lot of upside because the Timberwolves so far this year, they're playing at the 3rd fastest pace in the league. Last year, the Bucks were one of the fastest paced teams in the league. So far this year, the Bucks are a top 10 team in pace. I mean, both these teams are top 10 in pace so far this season. So this should be a very fast-paced, high-scoring game. It's just can Minnesota keep it close? That's the one issue. But if they can, I think you could see big games from Towns. You could see big games from Giannis, who we'll talk about in a second. I do like a good amount in this game, and Karl-Anthony Towns is definitely my favorite play from Minnesota. Other than him, though, like everyone else on Minnesota feels priced right. Anthony Edwards has been playing pretty well this year. He's shown a lot of upside. He's been very consistent, at least 40 Draftkings points in every game so far. He's playing big minutes as well. He's my second favorite play from Minnesota, and then that's probably it. Like, I don't think I'm playing anyone else on the Timberwolves outside of Towns and Edwards, or really even considering anyone else. But on the other side with Milwaukee, there's a good amount to like from Milwaukee here. We know Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez, both going to remain out. Dante DiVincenzo obviously still out. But the big news is that Bobby Portis is expected to make his season debut. Bobby Portis is probable, expected to play today, so we'll talk about that in a second. But starting off at the top with Giannis, so far this season, Giannis has been like one of the best stud options basically every slate he's been on. It's going to be that way basically the entire year. Any slate Giannis is on, he is going to be a top option. And especially in such a good spot like this against Minnesota, who has not been great defensively, previous years. Now, so far this year, Minnesota has actually been a pretty good defensive team. If you look at defensive rating, they've actually got the 4th best defensive rating in the league so far. But I don't think that's going to remain true. I mean, Minnesota was terrible defensively last year. I don't think they're really going to be that good defensively this year, even though they kind of have been so far. Really what I care about is the pace of this game, how many points are expected to be scored here. I haven't looked at the totals, but I assume this game has a very, very high total. We just need it to stay close. And if it can stay close, I mean, Giannis, Towns, Middleton, like these guys can put up big games. So Giannis is my favorite stud on this slate. I just hope the game stays close. If he gets his full minutes, he's very likely to be, one of, if not the highest scoring player overall. Like him a lot on both sides. If I can pay up for one guy, I think Giannis might be my favorite. And normally that's going to be the case for almost every slate that Giannis is on. He's just so productive when he's on the floor. He's such a high usage player. And without Drew Holiday, we know the usage is going to be dominated by Giannis and Middleton. Middleton finally had a good game last game, and he's someone that you could also play today. Only played 32 minutes, but did have 46 Draftkings points. Now, he shot the ball pretty well, 52% from the field, 66% from 3. But Middleton's going to get a lot of opportunity without Drew Holiday. Again, I expect the usage to be dominated by Giannis and Middleton. So those are 2 standout plays, 2 guys I do like a lot from this Milwaukee team. And then there's some value you can consider from Milwaukee. So Grayson Allen, 4,400. He's been getting good minutes lately. I think without Drew Holiday, that does help Grayson Allen. That helps to secure his minutes. I think he'll be a little bit more productive as well with Jrue Holiday off the floor. And he's been getting some shot attempts. I mean, I don't think he's going to be really a high usage player in this Milwaukee offense. Like so far, I'll pull up his usage rate. I don't think he's really had that high of a usage rate this season, but he has at least been productive when he's on the floor. He's taken, at least 10 shots in every single game so far. He's taken some three-pointers as well. I said that at the beginning of the year, I think Grayson Allen will be someone that gets a lot of open looks just with how this Milwaukee offense works, with how defenses concentrate so much on Giannis. It allows for guys like Grayson Allen, these shooters to get open looks, and we've seen Grayson Allen have a lot of open looks so far this season, but looking at him so far this year, he's only got a 17% usage rate, but he's still averaging a pretty solid 0.85 fantasy points per minute, and I'm sure if I took Jrue Holiday off the floor, those numbers would go up a little bit. So for 4,400, again, I'm recording this video the night before. We don't really have a ton of standout value right now. That could maybe change, obviously, as the day goes on, depending on what news comes out. But I do like Grayson Allen as a first look value, 4,400 on DK, and he's really, really cheap on Yahoo. He's close to minimum salary there, only $11 at shooting guard. Definitely think Grayson Allen is a pretty solid first look value just for now. Without Jrue Holiday, I think that really helps Grayson Allen. We've kind of seen that these last few games. He's someone I do have interest in at 4,400 and what should be a good matchup and a fast-paced game against this Minnesota team. And then Pat Connaughton, Jordan Nwora, you could also consider for value. They're riskier options, but last game you got 32 minutes from Pat Connaughton. Even though he came off the bench, he's still going to get big minutes on a nightly basis, even coming off the bench. He's basically going to be their sixth man. So he's playable at 4,600. Jordan Nwora was pretty popular last slate. At 4,500 today, I don't think he'll be nearly as popular, but he still has upside too. And with Jrue still out, I think there is opportunity available for Nwora. But then the last guy I'll mention is Bobby Portis. So at 4,300, Bobby Portis will have to keep an eye on if he starts or not. With Brook Lopez out, I think there is a possibility that Bobby Portis does start, but we don't really know how many minutes he plays. It's his first game of the season. He's been dealing with a hamstring injury. There is a pretty good possibility that if he does play today, he will be on some sort of minutes limit. So that's just news we're going to have to keep an eye on. But if we can confirm that Bobby Portis is starting and not limited, he'll be one of the best value plays on the slate because Bobby Portis is a very productive player when he gets minutes. We'll have to keep an eye on that news. But I think that's probably it for Milwaukee. George Hill, I liked him for value last slate. On this slate at 3,700, he feels priced about right. I don't think I'm going to play George Hill today. There'll probably be better value open up. Even with Jrue Holiday out, he probably will start again, but I don't think we need to go there on a big slate like this. Like I said, there'll probably be better value. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next game. Talk about the Lakers and OKC. So both these teams on a back-to-back. We're going to have to keep an eye on some news here. Obviously, LeBron James, this is the big question mark. So LeBron did not play Tuesday against the Spurs, and given they're on a back-to-back, we have no idea if he's going to play today. He's questionable once again. Given that it's a game against the Thunder, I'm kind of actually leaning towards LeBron being out again. They don't really need to rush him back when they're playing OKC, who's arguably the worst team in the league. So I think it's pretty likely that LeBron doesn't play today, but for now, I'm just going to assume that he's in. If LeBron plays, there's really nothing I like from the Lakers. Everyone on LA feels appropriately priced if LeBron plays. But if LeBron gets ruled out, we know where to go to. And we saw the guys that benefited, Tuesday night. AD, Westbrook both had massive games. AD put up 70 Draftkings points in their game against San Antonio, played 42 minutes in overtime. Westbrook had a massive game as well, 64 Draftkings points, played 40 minutes in overtime, took 27 shots. Clearly without LeBron, Westbrook is going to take a ton more shots. His peripheral should still be there, if not, increase. He should probably get more assists with LeBron off the floor. Both AD and Westbrook are super underpriced if LeBron's out again. They were top plays for me in Tuesday's slate. They'll probably be top plays for me once again if LeBron remains out. And then the secondary guys we could consider, like Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony I was pretty high on, and he had a terrible, terrible game. But I would be fine going back to Carmelo Anthony today if LeBron remains out. Same could be said for Malik Monk, who did start in place of LeBron, played 39 minutes in overtime, had 26 DK points. He's super cheap, only 3,700. I would like him for value. And then Rajon Rondo is a punt play, cheap option. He only played 20 minutes, but he was kind of productive, had 16 DK points. He was really, really low owned. He was a lot lower owned than I thought he would be. I thought Rondo would actually pick up some ownership given how cheap he was. And he was 3% owned in the big tournaments that I was in. So if Rondo's going to be super low owned again, if LeBron remains out, I think Rondo's a dart throw you could go to in tournaments. But if LeBron's out, the core plays from the Lakers are obviously AD and Westbrook. And then Malik Monk would be a really good value as well if he starts again. But if LeBron plays, I don't really like anything here. On the OKC side, though, this is a pretty good spot for these OKC guys. The Lakers have been playing at a really fast pace this year, and they haven't been that great defensively. So a guy like SGA in tournaments, I do like quite a bit, especially if LeBron gets ruled out. Because if LeBron gets ruled out, I have a very good feeling I'm going to be rostering multiple Lakers. If I'm playing multiple Lakers, I might play someone on the Thunder side and just hope that we get, a high-scoring competitive game like we did Tuesday night against the Spurs. SGA is going to be the first guy that I look to from the Thunder. I mean, he was I think he was 8,100 on Tuesday's slate, and his price went down $1,000. I'm not really sure why. 7,100 for SGA is definitely too cheap here against a Lakers team that's playing fast in what should be hopefully a competitive game, especially if LeBron doesn't play. If LeBron doesn't play, that makes it a lot more likely this game stays close. So I do actually like SGA quite a bit. I think he's a really, really good option in the mid-range. The rest of the Thunder, though, man, God, I don't know about the rest of this team. They run such a deep rotation. They just spread out the minutes. I think Josh Giddey's probably my second favorite play behind SGA. He saw 27 minutes against the Warriors Tuesday night. Was still pretty productive in that time, put up 27 DK points. His price also went down $1,000. I don't really know why, but he's only 4,800 today. So I think Josh Giddey's a pretty decent value. Him and SGA are my two favorite plays from this team, and that's probably it. I don't think I'm going to play Baisley or Lou Dort or anyone else. It's just SGA and Giddey for me from the Thunder, and I do like both those guys a decent amount today. But next game, we got the Kings and the Suns. So looking at the Kings here, talking about this team, the Kings do give us some value that we will talk about in a second, but at the top, De'Aaron Fox at 8,600 against Phoenix feels priced about right on this slate. Now, De'Aaron Fox has not been great so far this year. He's been underperforming, especially, the last two games, but we know De'Aaron Fox still has upside. We know he can put up a big game at any moment. I don't think I'm going to go to him on this slate, though. There's just too many other guys I prefer, too many other guards I think I prefer, especially you got guys like LaMelo and SGA for cheaper that I think I'd rather go to. Harrison Barnes has been playing amazing, but I'm not going to play Harrison Barnes at 7,500. Buddy Hield, Halliburton, Holmes, they all feel priced about right. Maybe Rashawn Holmes at 5,900 you could go to. He is a guy that is really productive when he's on the floor. His minutes can fluctuate from game to game, but I think normally as long as he's not in foul trouble, we will get 30, 32 minutes from Rashawn Holmes. 5,900 is probably a little bit too cheap for him, but I still don't think he stands out as a core player or anything for me. But the guy I want to do mention for cheap is Davion Mitchell. So Davion Mitchell been getting good run off the bench so far this year for the Kings. He's played 24, 32, and 32 minutes in their 3 games. The production's gonna fluctuate from game to game because he is a very scoring dependent player. As you can see, games 1 and 2 of this season, he shot the ball terribly and he had a terrible game. But game 3, last game against the Warriors, he actually was able to make some shots and you saw him put up 29 DK points. So he's going to be a little bit of a riskier option just because he is so scoring dependent, but he's only 4,200 and he's been getting good minutes. He's been playing 32 minutes in back-to-back games. I think he continues to get 25 to 30 minutes on a nightly basis. The matchup against Phoenix may not be the best, but if we can get 30 minutes from Davion Mitchell at only 4,200, as long as he can make some shots, he's definitely got the upside to really blow this price out of the water. I think he is a little bit too cheap today. He's another guy that I kind of like as a first-look value that you can go to on DK, and if you want to play him on Yahoo too, you can. He's pretty affordable there. I think he's $15 at shooting guard. Let me see. Or maybe it's point guard. I think he's point guard eligible on Yahoo. He's $15 at point guard on Yahoo. So if you want to play Mitchell there, I think that's totally fine too. But he is someone I do like a good amount overall today as a kind of first look value. But that's really it from Sacramento. Now on the Phoenix side, I really haven't been on any Suns so far this year. I haven't played any Suns just in my main lineups. I don't think I'm going to play anyone from Phoenix today. Everyone on this team feels priced about right. If I had to play someone from Phoenix, it would probably be Chris Paul. It is a pretty good spot here. Sacramento does play pretty fast. They've always been a pretty fast-paced team. They've never been good defensively. Would it be surprising to see Chris Paul put up a big game here? I don't think it would be surprising at all. But again, there's other guards that you have in that price range like LaMelo, Fred VanVleet, SGA. I think I'm going to prefer those guys over Chris Paul today. But Paul's at least viable. That's really it, though, from from Phoenix and just from this game overall. I don't see too much else I like here. So last 2 games we'll talk about. First off, Memphis and Portland. On the Memphis side, you got John Morant coming in at 9,600. John Morant, really, really expensive. It's not. We didn't really see him priced this high that much last year. He has been playing really good so far this season. He's been playing massive minutes as well, been super, super productive. If John Morant keeps playing this well, obviously at 9,600, he has the upside to pay off this price tag, but he's so closely priced to other studs like Giannis, Cat. I'm just going to prefer those guys. So far throughout their careers, they have been better point per minute players than John Morant. Now, John Morant, I think, is definitely up and coming. I think John Morant is going to be a superstar. I think he's going to be an elite fantasy player. But at 9,600 on DraftKings, he's priced correctly, in my opinion. But on Yahoo, I think that's where John Morant really stands out. John Morant's been underpriced on Yahoo ever since the start of the season. And he's underpriced once again. I mean, he's $35 on Yahoo. He's cheaper than Malcolm Brogdon. He's cheaper than LaMelo. I mean, I love LaMelo today, but on Yahoo, I'm going to prefer Ja Morant because he's cheaper. And Ja Morant's probably projects higher than LaMelo, and he's $3 less. So I love Ja Morant on Yahoo. I think he's a great player over there. On DraftKings, he's still playable, but obviously not as much interest where he's so expensive at $9,600. And then like some of these other Memphis guys, I think are viable. The price tags on Melton and Bane have been really cheap lately, but they kind of came up a little bit today. Melton's $5K, Bane's $4,800, but Melton and Bane have been starting and they've been getting around 30 minutes a night. And it's a good matchup against Portland. This should be a pretty fast-paced, high-scoring game. So I think there is still upside for Melton and Bane. Again, on Yahoo, the price tags on these guys they're just way better. Bane's only $13 at small forward. Small forward is always a pretty gross position on Yahoo. It's kind of always a tough position to fill. I do like going cheap on Yahoo at small forward with a guy like Desmond Bane, who's only $13. Again, he's been starting, playing 30-plus minutes a night, been productive as well. Desmond Bane last season was not that great of a point-per-minute player, but so far this year he's been relatively productive. I don't know if he continues to average 30 fantasy points a night, but while he's still this cheap and while he's still getting 30-plus minutes, I'm just going to keep playing him until his price rises. So I do like him a lot on Yahoo. On DraftKings, I think he's priced about right. Same could be said for DeAnthony Melton. And then the only other guy I'll mention from Memphis is Steven Adams. Steven Adams is someone that's also been producing very well this year. Steven Adams has never been much of a high upside option. He's always been more of a consistent kind of floor guy. Like Steven Adams most nights will give you 25, 30 DK points. But lately he's been putting up some big ceiling games. Put up 39 against the Clippers, 42 last game against the Lakers. Again, Steven Adams has never been a super high upside player, but at 5,300, he's probably too cheap if he's going to continue to get 30-plus minutes on a nightly basis, which is something we didn't see much from him last year when he was with the Pelicans. But so far this year with Memphis, he's been getting big minutes on a nightly basis. He might be still a little bit too cheap at 5,300. So I do like a good amount from Memphis here. Ja, I think's the best play on Yahoo. I think all these guys look a lot better on Yahoo where they're cheaper. But Ja, Steven Adams, Melton, Bane, I think are all in play in a good matchup against the Blazers. And then looking at the Blazers here on the other side, Damian Lillard, I want to have interest in tournaments. Like Damian Lillard was god-awful last game against the Clippers. He hasn't been great so far this year, but he's going to turn it around at some point. Like him, James Harden, these guys are going to have a big game at some point. They're not going to continue to be as bad as they've been. And in a good matchup against Memphis in a very high-scoring game, what should be a fast-paced game, I mean, this does feel like a spot where Damian Lillard could finally get going, could finally put up a massive game. In tournaments, I do like Damian Lillard quite a bit. Now, like in cash games, I don't think I'd be playing Lillard on this slate. I think in cash, you're probably just going to want to try and pay up for Giannis. But I do like Lillard in tournaments. I really just like this game overall. With how it sets up, with given how fast these teams play, given the pace, given the projected high total. I do like Lillard quite a bit in tournaments. But then you got CJ McCollum, who's been playing really well this year. Now he's kind of been shooting lights out, which I think is going to regress at some point, and it kind of did last game. 58% from the field, 52% from the field first two games. Well, last game he only shot 43% from the field, only had 37 DK points. CJ McCollum is a little bit scoring dependent. I'm always a little hesitant to roster CJ McCollum, especially when Lillard's healthy. I normally don't play McCollum that often, but I will say with how good of a game this is and with how fast it should be played at, it wouldn't be surprising to see CJ McCollum put up, a ceiling game here. So he's at least playable, I think. Yusuf Nurkic, not been great this year, but we know Yusuf Nurkic also has upside. We know he can put up a big game any night. He's someone I have some interest in tournaments. And then the last guy I will mention from Portland is Nasir Little, 3,900. He's been starting lately in place of Norman Powell. Norman Powell is questionable once again. Last two games without Powell, you've seen Little play 32 and 27 minutes. Been productive as well, 25 DraftKings points in both games. If Norman Powell is out again and Little starts for 3,900, I don't think he's that bad of a value at this price point. We'll have to see what value opens up, but I would say at this price tag, Little is definitely in play for me if Norman Powell does remain out. But obviously, if Norman Powell plays today, then just scratch that. Don't play Little. But last game of the night we'll talk about is the Clippers and the Cavs. So on the Cavs today, I really don't see much I like here. Evan Mobley's been great this year. He's shown a lot of upside, but he's priced right. Same could be said for Garland and Sexton. I really just don't like anything on Cleveland today. This is a team I really haven't been on much this year, and I don't think I'm going to roster any Cavs on a big slate like this. So we can talk about the Clippers. The Clippers are kind of another team I don't really have that much interest in. Paul George at 10,300. Look, Paul George has been amazing this year. He's obviously got massive upside without Kawhi. We know he's going to dominate the usage on this team. But on this slate, I think I would probably prefer Giannis, Towns, like maybe even Lillard. Even though Lillard's been so bad this year, I think I might prefer Lillard for the savings and probably for the lower ownership as well. I just don't think I'm going to get to PG. There's too many other studs I would prefer, and obviously I can't play everybody, so probably not going to go to Paul George, Reggie Jackson, Eric Bledsoe. I don't think I'm going to go to either. Eric Bledsoe was pretty good to start the year, kind of came back down to earth last game. I don't think I'm going to go to Bledsoe, even though he has been playing a lot better this season. Zubac's minutes have just been all over the place. Marcus Morris was out last game and Batum started, but Batum was terrible. Like, he only played 22 minutes, only had 14 DK points. I think if Batum starts again, you could go there, but there's probably going to be better value open up. Same could be said for guys like Terrence Mann and Luke Kennard. Both Mann and Kennard played well last game, and I think without Marcus Morris, both those guys should see increased minutes as well. But on this slate, I don't think we need to pay $4,600 for Terrence Mann or $4K for Luke Kennard, especially like if LeBron gets ruled out. There's just going to be better value overall. We're going to have value from the Lakers we can go to. We probably won't need to play some of these Clippers guys. So yeah, that kind of does it for the slate, guys. I think we broke down each game by game, kind of give you guys my quick and brief thoughts of this 10-game slate. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. I appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed, click that like button down below. Click that subscribe button as well. As always, I do appreciate the likes, and I appreciate everyone that has subscribed to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to upload as much NBA content as I can right now. Trying to upload videos almost every single day. Trying to stream, at least Monday through Friday if I can. Still getting up NFL content on the channel as well. So be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. And also check out Prize Picks. They are the sponsor of this video. As we mentioned at the beginning, guys, Prize Picks, they will give you they will match your first deposit up to $100 if you do sign up and use promo code Noah. So check them out. Use promo code Noah when you sign up, and you can make some picks for yourself on Prize Picks. You can take a look at what they have to offer for Wednesday's games. Very simple. Just pick the over or the under on the projections that they have listed, and you can easily win 10 extra money on Prize Picks. You have to make at least 2 picks, but you can make up to 5 picks and win 10 extra money. So check them out, and be sure to use promo code Noah when you do sign up for Prize Picks. You will get your first deposit matched up to $100. But I think that does it for today's video, guys. I wish you guys the best of luck on the slate. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to tune into the live stream Wednesday night. I'll probably be live, a couple hours before lock, breaking down the slate once again with you guys, answering any of your questions. So be sure to tune into that then. But good luck tonight, and thanks for watching, guys. Peace.